Hello, and welcome to another episode of Super Pros Bros. I'm Player 2, Eli, and with me as always is...
Player 1, Ike. And, Brosicle, did you know that this pod is available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify?
I do not, bro mama. Are those the same places that they could...
Like,
comment,
share,
and subscribe?
Well, it sure is.
What do you know about that?
I don't know that much about that, other than what we just said, but I do know that we made a small oopsie doodle, and where last week we did a fathers-oriented special showcase, if you will, on Father's Day. We
seem to have neglected a party.
We might have forgotten the other half, if you will.
Might have done
many
goofed.
moons prior. And to rectify that, what do we got going on today?
Well, tonight we're talking about the flip side of, instead of fathers we love and love to hate, we've got mothers that we love and love to hate. It seems only fair.
It does seem only fair. And as it is Mother's Day, and I know our mother would prefer this, and to kind of add a little zest to the sauce, we're putting a...
Slapping this one with a PG label, folks.
Well, as we were talking right before we started this recording, in writing there is known as kind of like stipulations, or, what's a better way? Is there a better way to put it? Stipulations pretty good, right?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, stipulations for writing, when you're writing a series or when you're writing a certain kind of character, that you will have them do and not do certain things, whether it's against their alignment or because of rating. And so for this one, in honor of mothers, we're going to do our best to keep our sailor speak to an absolute minimum.
Yep. We're keeping it the child-friendly, I guess. It sounded better in my head. Anyways.
It's the episode to share with all of those lovely mother figures in your life, as they will not be astonished or embarrassed to have listened to it.
Well, they could still be embarrassed, but for different
we can only
reasons.
do so much.
We're still fundamentally us, and still fundamentally terrible. So hey,
thanks, Krusty.
No problem.
So as last time, Fathers in Fiction, I started off, and I got to have the better part of the nice category. We decided to flip the script this way as well, and I believe my co-host here gets to have the first loving addition to the list of awesome moms.
First of the good mothers on the list. And so, with a newer season of Stranger Things, it seems appropriate to give a shout-out to Joyce Byers. She is kind of the unrelenting protector in the series. So even in Season 1, when everything seems stacked against her from finding her kid, she refuses to give up on her child. And while in isolation that one can seem a little bit kooky, because, if you didn't have perfect kind of omniscient context for everything, you'd go, wow, this woman is nuts. She's also very good at being very honest and unrelentingly accepting of her children, too.
Mm.
And despite it being kind of set in the 80s, she's very willing to accept emotional confluence as well. And understands that her kids are going to go through stuff that she can't totally understand, and that they're allowed to feel bad and sad and all sorts of things. That's just normal. It's not wrong. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I think that speaks to her quality as a parent is she basically tries to convince Hopper to understand that same principle, that emotions are not bad or good, they just kind of are, and bottling them is not the way to deal.
Yeah, totally.
So I think she absolutely deserves a good spot on the good maternal figures.
top shelf mom right there.
Exactly. So who you got going up on the top shelf there?
Adjoining her on the top shelf of moms is Morticia Addams from the Addams Family. I didn't watch the show growing up because that was way ahead of my time. But I'm more talking from the 1990 flick. One of the very interesting characteristics, and one of the things you'll notice is that we're focusing, each mother has a different, or showcases a very prominent different characteristic of what we think makes an awesome mom and what we've seen from other awesome moms in our lives. And where Joyce Byers is an unrelenting protector, Morticia Addams is very supportive of her family, regardless of what they do. I mean, they literally, in the, their kooky is like a very big part of, being an Addams Family member. Like the first thing you got to check off the list before you can apply to become one, I would reckon. But also, not only is she super supportive, she does her own thing. She's not just, here's dinner, she's not just the marm figure. She has her own identity, loves flowers, does her own thing, is supportive of her family while not being beholden to them, and is able to, I think, while it's hokey and kind of played for a laugh, the character is able to be romantic with her husband in a way that is not so close to the vest that you didn't even realize was happening, and that's so far out there that it's, PDA. It very much her character is, loving of her husband, speaks French, is, kisses a lot, but at the same time, it's very beautiful and not ooky as much as they are kooky. So I think it's a really good showcase of, you can...
It's a very passionate relationship.
It's a very passionate relationship that doesn't go too far. I think they keep it in that that kind of Goldilocks zone, so to speak, where it's just the right amount of like, oh, that's sweet, and they're in love, but it's not like, geez, get a room. It very much it plays in that way, and she not only supportive of when her family is doing weird stuff, like kids come in, what are you doing? Oh, we're gonna play doctor, and they have like electrical
like
equipment,
a bone saw.
Yeah, they're going crazy. Granted, this is the part where they're kooky, because I believe they are. It is suggested that they are quasi old school monster power level kind of stuff. So like that doesn't kill them or hurt them. So it's not like she's allowing her children to put themselves in danger, as far as we can tell. So that's fun. That's cute. But then also when her husband is having like a moment after they get thrown from their home, she's still there for him. She still loves her husband, and also goes out to like help reclaim their throne and stuff like that. It's very sweet, and I think it's a very good showing of what is possible. It's not like there's a lot of expectations, I feel like, of mothering characters that remove those possibilities. It's kind of like it's seen as weird to do a lot of them, and able to pull off all of them, I think, is a great showcasing. Speaking of showcasing, what else you got? I don't beep. Dude, I'm not doing this on nearly enough coffee. Also, I just did a beep, so I'm sorry. But
for shame.
Oh gosh, shame. One shame point for the Ike. Next up on the list, who we got, Broskinkowski? Save me!
Arguably the loudest entry on this list, we have Lois from Malcolm in the Middle. That's, I think, what I like most about this show is that at the start, all you can see is Lois is just the worst. Like, she's just constantly shouting. She seems so easily provoked and agitated. And the more you watch, and the more as the show kind of grows up with the kids growing up, you come to see and come to realize, like, oh my god, she's the sanest person in the house. And I mean, and our mom could relate to this. She's the only girl in the house just packed with testosterone. And at times she is completely at her wit's end because her children are nightmares, and she does her best to try and keep control of this flailing house. But she never at any point walks out She doesn't quit. She doesn't just roll over and play dead. Like, money's hard, so she gets a job. Despite,
Take care of the house.
Yeah, having to try and mitigate the disaster from her 3 rambunctious, over-the-top children and her ridiculous caricature of a husband.
Isn't it at times it's even 4 too, right?
Yes, like because there's an older son. There's an older son who shows up, and then later she's like another kid.
Yeah.
And it's, but like at points it's kind of funny because they have like weird, quiet, somber moments, or like where she actually has genuine wisdom to put on her kids when they're like, "You're being ridiculous." She's like, "No, I'm not."
Yeah.
And here's why. Like,
I think Malcolm facts.
Yeah, like, but I think one of the best examples is Malcolm complains that she's making him work, like in her store. Like it's basically like a CVS, right? It's kind of pharmacy general store thing. And he's like, "This is ridiculous. I'm so smart." She's like, "Yeah, you're brilliant. You're also a teenager, and you're stupid. And so I'm keeping you in a place where you can learn some responsibility, and I can keep an eye on you so you don't do something so stupid that you ruin your future." And he's just like, I don't have a good... Like, he just has no kind of comeback to it, because it makes really good sense.
Yeah.
And especially with, like, her older son that comes to see more eye to eye with her and realize, like, wow, she's not crazy. She actually has, like, good points. And it's a really kind of fun... It's exaggerated. It's a sitcom. But it is a fun view, where you get to see Mom's perspective make so much more sense as the kids grow up.
Yeah, I mean, like it's realism, and it's realism in a comedy format, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like one of the things that watching that show just, I think, and they play it up, they hyperbolize it, and a lot of times she does get made fun of. But I think one of the ways the writing does come through and give the show so much more oomph is that, like what you're talking about, where she's not crazy, she's just dealing with a lot, and having that be shown where she has human moments and breaks down is like, what the heck, and loses her shit on her kids. It's like, losing your shit on your kids isn't a bad thing. Losing your shit, like, to certain degrees where it results in, some of the stuff will go on later in the bad category, is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when you have a human moment, you're just like, what in the holy gosh darn it? Come on, I'm doing so much for you and you kids, and you're messing it up. Like, that's every mother's tribulation. And for it to be given a voice that is not only hilarious but also realistic, so it hits both sides of the spectrum, is just genius writing. Yeah. As far as producing is concerned, but also as like representation is concerned. There's so many women out there, I'm sure, that neither of us even notice, or that is their existence. And so to like give them a voice, while albeit being comedic most of the time, giving that a voice where the characters can, and be exonerated.
The other thing too that I think is so great about it is she used to spend all her time playing the bad guy, quote unquote, because Hal is just, he's a goof. he's a damn goof. And so she's like, all right, somebody's got to steer this damn boat. So, and I like that it's got a long time to really pay off, but it's like, oh, she makes sense, and it's so sensible, despite her being the bad guy, quote unquote. So I do like that kind of comes full circle for her too.
And also a through line from our Morticia Addams. She has 3 kids and a love life. She and her husband are very much enamored with each other, even though they're old and they both know they're kind of old, and they're just accepting of it. It's very sweet. It's hilarious because of the way it's acted
at times.
But like, it's not, again, it's kind of in your face in a believable way. It's not like ooky. It's just like, it's 2 working parents that have 3 kids. So occasionally they're going to get a little funky with each other around the kids and like smooching and stuff like that, but it's never egregious.
The best one is just they think all the kids are gone, and Dewey shows back up, and Hal's like walking across the house basically naked, and he's like holding a box of chocolate strawberries, and Dewey just walks, he's like, ha! So he just hands him like $30. He's like, just go anywhere else, please.
But it's reality. You know, it's the comedy in the reality, but that's like reality is like, you know, you're not gonna have that much time. It's precious to you. Like the way it's showcased is for comedy's sake, but the circumstance and the way it's handled is
every working parent totally gets it, 100%.
And again, like one of those things, I think we've talked about this in the past about with maligned groups, especially in this country, where it's just like the more you can show a underappreciated or unseen reality helps that community feel appreciated and identified. You see that with like there's been studies done with writing with books written by like African Americans versus, you know, and having those be in circulation versus them not, and what it will do for the African American community, seeing one of their own, hearing their own stories or stories that they can identify with, main characters that they can identify with, and how much that changes people's perspective and enjoyment of the product. It's so much harder to buy into something where you don't have a stand-in. That's why like most main characters are kind of, you know, it's why Keanu Reeves makes a kick-ass action hero, is because everybody can get inside his head because the characters are written in a very basic way. Oops.
Stop. Shame.
I'm trying. This sailor mouth needs to go to sea. Don't know what that means. But to showcase this in a comedy, hit both aisles, it's a complete tour de force. Definitely one of those old shows that got a lot of love, deserved every minute of it, and definitely one to go back and check out.
Yeah, it still holds up, still hilarious, because slapstick humor it does so good.
Slapstick, and just like it's about family. It's about dealing with your annoying kids, but dealing with your annoying parents. Like both sides aggravate the other. And so it's just a tale as old as time that will never go away. It's just a constant in life, is just dealing with that. Like for the last 100 years and for hopefully hundreds of years to come, that's going to be the problem for most like families, is just like dealing with your parents that love you but annoy the crap out of you.
Yeah. Speaking of things that annoy the crap out of, I don't have a good segue into this.
I'll say, whoa, shots fired.
All right, yeah, that just doesn't work. Anyway,
from one working mom to another, and way
better.
Yeah. I'm just gonna ride my segue into victory lane. From one working mother to another, we've got Marvelous Miss Maisel in Midge. One of the reasons that Midge is on this list is another one of those showcasing. This one isn't realism per se, but it's showing a possibility that is tenable in a realistic format. So Midge, you know, gets divorced, has to deal with that, so she has to go and get a job, has to find some amount of time to spend with her kids, and also pursue a passion that becomes a future. And all of these things, I believe, while do make mothering problematic, I think depending upon circumstance and upon character, are very realistic. There are people that have kids and want to have a career.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing. And they show this in a bit of a lighter light, but not without consequence. There's many situations where she has to deal with her kids, where she has to fight for her kids. You know, she wants one of her kids to do very well. So she has a tiff with her ex-husband about where they're going to go to school. And that has a moment, has consequence, and something she strives for, you know, but she also is a stand-up comedian, has to be on the road. So she has to employ some alternate tactics to, you know, get her kids taken care of, make sure somebody's with them and she's not just leaving them alone, which some might consider bad parenting. I think is just a necessity of the circumstance that she finds herself in. Yeah. You know, what example are you showcasing your children if you don't go after what you feel like you have to? And your dreams and stuff like that.
It's a very real compromise.
Yeah.
In a situation where you can't have it all.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to figure out the balancing act.
Yeah. Well, I think that she does get to have it all, but you know, somewhere between at what cost and with what compromises, right?
Yeah, but she doesn't get to spend every night with her kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, she doesn't get to, you know, there's some stuff like she's just gotta ditch them with their parents, or gotta get a sitter, or
or she has to do this thing, like, she has to bring her kids to this thing, or she has to take care of her kids under this circumstance. There's times where she takes her kids with her, she takes them out to the park, and like, she never is a bad mom and leaves them alone. She's never a bad mom and like, ditches the time that she promised to spend with them. She always is there when she says she's going to be there. Maybe a little late, maybe under, maybe she's like writing
under duress.
Well, I mean, like, I think there's a couple episodes where she ends up writing, like, doing some, like, joke work while she's, like, hanging out at her kid's party. Like, she's there, but in, like, a lesser capacity. It's not ideal, but it's a circumstance of, balancing having a life and, like, having a life, kids, career, wanting to have a significant other, having all these problems while still being there. Something's got to give. And so it's, in percentages, not in options. Like, some people
have so many spoons.
Yeah, you only have so many spoons, but instead of just giving up on one sector of her life, whether it's, okay, I'm not going to really be a mom to you, or okay, I'm not going to follow my dreams, she does it, in quotes, all. And I think that's something powerful to show, is that, just because I feel like for a long time, if you look at media of a mom, they're relegated to being bad or having their children be their life. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your kid being your life, but if that's the only option, that's not fair. And so to showcase the other possibility that is difficult, and she's constantly drained and she's constantly agitated, doesn't not wear on her, but to show that it's possible, I think has value.
I would agree.
Speaking of being able to do it all, sorry, were you going to say something before that awesome transition?
So, you should have said being flexible. That would have been way better.
Okay. So, speaking of moms that are flexible enough to, how does that even, what?
I was just thinking of the line, you need to be more...
No, I knew the line.
Anyway, we're talking about Elastigirl. I'm just... Screw subtlety.
All right, well, I guess that's making it into the cut. It's us flubbing that trans.
Awful. If we get proof we do not rehearse.
We'll do it live.
Thing sucks! If you know, you know. Anyway, Elastigirl. Elastigirl is, in my opinion, a great mother figure because she's very grounded. And what I mean is that she, initially, at the very start of Incredibles, she is the top of her game. She is absolutely killing it. She's a superhero. Like, and she's got big name recognition. She's absolute baller. Totally whoops. And, kind of presumably, at least to some degree, kind of like a feminist icon. Because I mean, in like the little interview, leaving the saving of the world to the men? I don't think so. Like, she came to play.
Yeah.
And you see that change when she has kids.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great lines is when she is confronting Mr. Incredible, and because he's having so much trouble letting go of who he was, because that was so much of his identity was being Mr. Incredible, not being Bob Parr.
I mean, with that name differential, wouldn't you too?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not without reason. Like, who doesn't want to be this absolute behemoth of a superhero? Like, like, I totally understand why. That was his prime. That's when he had, like, effectively his dream job, and now he works in insurance. As someone who works in a beige cubicle, I could understand wanting to go back. Like, but they have kids, and so she recognizes, like, and his comment of reliving the glory days is better than pretending they didn't happen. She goes, yes, but your family is what's happening now, and you are missing this. And, like, she realizes that as much as she misses the past too, because she does. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that she absolutely misses being Elastigirl. but she recognizes that she can't necessarily be that person anymore. And having the presence of mind to go, it's time to move on, is a really impressive quality. And she's not deluded and not judgmental of her husband. Like, she understands.
Mm-hmm.
And she's willing to understand and be understanding. And, you've got to figure this isn't the first time they've had this fight. Like, this isn't the first time they've had this run-in, this butting of heads and opinions. And she's still standing by her husband.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a level of maturity and willingness to compromise what you want with where you are that is very impressive for her character, I think.
Totally. And, like, I mean, it's kind of funny. Her power is being flexible, and then her mom power is being flexible. Nail on the head, but also, like, great through line to characteristic.
And she also kind of fits the bill of, like, very, very much puts her family first, like, including when her husband goes and makes a colossal mess of things. She's like, well, I can't just ditch him.
Yeah.
Like, so when the situation changes, her priorities have to change. Like, she is unwilling to be a spectator.
Yep.
Even when she has her moment and needs to get smacked upside the head by the newspaper. God, I love Edna Mode. She's wonderful. Just arguably the most quotable character out of that movie. Is this a question? So yeah, I think she absolutely deserves the spot. But I think that now we are coming to the ugly part of this.
Flip
this
of
list.
the coin, so to speak. The bottom of the barrel.
Get out the beaten bat. We've got some uglies to bring up.
So the first Uggo that we have is June George from the fantastic comedy Mean Girls. June George is so we're trying to come up with a term for this. June George is very much lives vicariously through her daughter in, like, the creepy way. Like, think Toddlers and Tiaras, but if the, child grew up. And so there's this rift between the mother and daughter where the mother wants to be more like the daughter, wants to hang out with the daughter, wants to be cool with the daughter, wraps up her whole entire pride in her daughter and uses her as a, like, aren't I so great? Look at my daughter.
Look at what I made.
Look at this thing I got. Yeah, and very much just doesn't... She is a person and isn't a person to her, but the way she is a person is... how should we put this? Very not healthy.
She's a prop more than a person.
She's either a prop or somebody that the mom wants to be, like, best friends with. And neither of which are good ways of parenting. No. Not, like, sycophantal, like, want to be friends with. That, like, she's the mom that, yeah, you can drink here. It's fine by me. I'm a cool mom. See, like me. And, like, that kind of neediness. It's like...
that awkward insecurity.
That awkward insecurity that is wrapped up in her daughter in every which way till Sunday is, in our mind... from not being a mother, but from being around great mothers, such as our own, kind of not where you want to be. It's good to love your children, but to be in love with your children leads to unhealthy boundary setting, shall we say.
Or lack thereof.
Thereof.
Yeah.
But you can't be that wrapped up in your kid and have perspective to see what they need. It's like, one of the most important things that we've seen, not only is she doesn't have a life outside her kid, like her whole entire life is wrapped up in her kid. That's not healthy. She doesn't have any dreams or aspirations. She doesn't have anything that she wants to do except try to be like her kid or hold her kid up or anything creepy weepy like that. And that she can't give knowledge to her kid. She can't, because she's so... has idolized her child, she now no longer has perspective and is able to in any way help steer her kids in the right direction. For as much as, for instance, like Lois from Malcolm in the Middle is annoying, she also has perspective, sees her kid, loves her kids, but also understands her kids' like shortcomings and where they need to be.
Sometimes her kids are dumb.
Sometimes her kids are dumb because they're kids. That's what kids are. Kids are stupid. We were kids once. We were very dumb. Thank goodness we had parents that were smart and could help us get on the right track after we made stupid decisions and guide us and saw the stupid decisions that we were potentially going to make coming and gave us some advice, which sometimes even worked. However, June George, nope, not an option.
Hard pass.
Speaking of hard passes, what mom would you not like to have as your mom?
Oh boy. It's hard not to make this list without a classic case of zealotry, and we got Margaret White for that, which is the mom from Carrie.
Oh, Margaret.
Oh, Margaret. She's crazy, and I mean that literally. She's presented as bipolar, and aggressively so, I would add. And I think, I don't remember if she's medicating at all in the book or movies. I don't remember. What she is kind of overdosing on, however, is wacky, wild Christianity. To the point, like...
Wacky and wild Christianity? No way! Whatever could go wrong?
I mean, like, trying to exorcise the demons from your kid by, like, smacking them with a Bible, locking them in a closet, where it's that uncompromising.
What's bad about that? So I'm using
all the. Know about that?
I'm trying to use all the wacky and wild W's.
And it's as much as I kind of wish it was overblown. There are instances like this in reality. Yeah, it's super uncomfortable to think about.
This should not be realistic, but
it shouldn't. It is. And there's people that they view any kind of change or what they deem to be a deviation or sinful behavior as something that warrants punishment.
Yep.
It's one of those where it's like, in principle, Christianity is not a bad thing. It can be a decent guiding for ethos and morals, in appropriate, regulated quantities. But when you just take the lid off and dump, you get this, and you get this abusive and controlling and uncompromising viewpoint for everything, and it's just exacerbated by a mom who is swings hard at the direction because bipolar is as bipolar does, and you just end up with an abused child, just full stop. She's beaten. She is. There's no world where you lock a kid in a closet and it's okay. It's just not. It's just a bad look.
Just a bad look.
Just a bad look. I feel that I really need to provide a much more context.
It's not in vogue these days.
Exactly.
Locking your kid in a closet. Also, for I believe having her period.
Is that what it's for? Oh God.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's because she just has her period. It's like it's sticks in the closet until it goes away. It's something didn't even do anything actually wrong, was just human, and it's
yeah,
bad.
So she absolutely earns her spot on this list, unfortunately.
It's weird. You're off the rails when you're doing the more you're seen as being the crazy one when your daughter kills her whole entire problem with psychic powers and you're the nut job. Probably a good temple comparison to oops, made a bad
just maybe. The aggressive Bible thumping ain't working out. Put off this abusive mess. What do we got next?
We have the ever vindictive Lady Tremaine from Cinderella. The old evil stepmom, eh? The classic trope, where I believe this actually is where it started, or it was one of the most glaring or
ones.
prominent examples. Lady Tremaine just hits, is just hitting cartoonish levels, which makes sense because, Cinderella, Disney cartoon, or most famously Disney cartoon.
This is the same thing with talking mice.
Yeah, you were right in remembering. But, just hits all the beats, is just, vindictive for no reason, overcorrecting, just uses her as a whipping girl, basically, but for no crimes that anybody else has committed. And just takes it out on her that she is related to her ex-husband, who gave her everything, I believe. It's such a weird form of punishing. It, I guess it makes sense in a way that, maybe she could reclaim her money if she knew or something, but I don't fully understand. The reasoning for being evil stepmom is not as fleshed out as I'd like, but yeah, just all bad. Just there's no positive. Not equal treatment, overcorrection to the max, mean.
Discipline for problems that aren't hers.
Yes.
Forced to basically be a slave. Denied any kind of social standing.
All around.
Socially isolated. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Definitely not doing the matriarchy any favors by existing.
No. I mean, so there's a really kind of very morbid thought that someone had about Cinderella, and it's that Cinderella believes the mice can talk because she's so desperate for a friend.
Yeesh.
Yeah, it's like, that's horrifying.
It's a different kind of horror movie.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Luckily, it's a fantasy world, and it's just magic, so...
Yeah, thank God for fairy godparents.
So from the quintessential example of bad moms, what next we got on the evil slate?
So I've got from the show Promised Neverland the character Isabella, who is who is the mother, quote unquote, of this orphanage. She seems nice.
She seems nice.
Nice. She's the worst. For one, she is raising the children to die. So that's a big oof.
Well, okay. Technically, everybody's raising their kid to die, just not in an intentional sense.
Okay.
Explain what you mean.
She's raising these children effectively to be food. Because there's big monsters that kind of run the world that like to eat humans. They like to eat brains. So she's basically giving tests to these kids to see who's the smartest, and then marking them to be eaten.
Jeez.
Oh yeah.
Best time to not study for a test.
It's super
Ilabella's
messed up.
Orphanage.
And it turns out when you learn about her, she was given a choice to give up because she was pregnant, and she was kept alive because she was basically good breeding stock, which is a whole nightmare on its own. And she was given an option to give up her kid so she could live to go run an orphanage. She took the deal. Didn't fight, didn't protest, just said, okay, I'll do it. Oh yeah, she just was absolutely willing to give people up for her own self-preservation. Just like that, there's an amount of greed and, I don't know if narcissism is the right description, but...
Not wrong.
Yeah, so, and also she's super manipulative, and she almost cartoonishly evil at certain points. It's like, to prevent kids from running, she just casually, breaks someone's leg. She's very willing to hurt people. It's just like, oh.
I mean, if you're willing to give them over to be eaten, I feel like hurting people is one of the lesser offenses. It's still messed up, but jeez.
It's just, it's super exacerbated when you're like, she just broke an 11-year-old's shin. Yeesh.
I think we're straying away from our PG rating a bit.
Yeah, sorry. Let's just. She's the worst. Take it away. Let's try and reclaim some sense here.
We're gonna turn it on its head a skosh. This is can't save the best for last because I can't ever beat that in all my years
No,
of existing.
that one's cartoony evil.
Yeah.
But
Well, from one
woo,
cartoon to another, we're gonna go with Mallory Archer from the show Archer. And while she's ridiculous, the way in which she is a bad mom, amongst many others, is her neglect, which is sadly all too real for plenty of people, but
yeah.
also it's one that's just the way I think they do a good job at showing that as a real life problem while also making it cartoony. Because the way in which she's neglectful is just amazingly bad. Which again, comedy, so that's why. It's just like, yeah, this is a real problem, but we're gonna make it like ridiculous to the point where it's not real, thank goodness. So it helps you like disassociate. But yeah, just never was there for her kid, doesn't show her kid love, doesn't appreciate her kid. Yeah, it turns out that will make you into a,
It does things to
sociopath,
you.
sex pants, nutso double agent guy. So if you don't want your kids to end up like Archer from Archer, maybe be there after lacrosse practice and pick them up. Maybe don't let them get raised by a old drug addict of a war vet with PTSD as their butler.
Maybe be willing to tell your kid you love them from time to time.
Yeah, exactly. Say those words.
Yeah, like actually say the words, and maybe live them out a little.
All of these things would be much preferred.
Also, can't since you mentioned her, R.I.P. Jessica Walters, who did the voice. Yep. Absolutely outstanding voice actress.
Thank you very much for bringing. In general. Thank you very much for bringing this voice to a awesomely atrocious character. It will always be remembered as the funniest worst mom of all time.
Absolutely.
Well, with that send off, I think we're going to send ourselves on a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Have you wanted to take your kids to the movies, only for the movies to follow you home for weeks? Have you ever thought, I want to be incessantly humming the same 6 bars for days on end? Well, look no further than the animated children's movies. You'll surely be taken hostage by your 5-year-old as they repeatedly demand they have to see the new movie or they're gonna die. And then deal with them lamenting how they want all the merchandise that is suddenly everywhere. And not to mention the songs are gonna follow you home too. With such studios as Disney and DreamWorks printing these things, you're bound to leave with an insidious and infectious earworm that you'll be humming. Oh, because your kids never stop singing that one darn song. You know which one it is. But hey, at least the creators know you're being forced and coerced by those ankle biters, and they throw in some jokes along the way that only you're gonna understand. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, kids!
Alright, too far, bozo.
Hey, people.
Overcorrecting. Anyway.
Hi. My name, Ike. We back break.
We'll take it. Would you like to tell us what you've been working on this week?
So I've decided to really focus in on one of the pieces of work that I've been kind of ruminating on for way too long now. And so most likely the next bunch of... Oh, wait. Oh, this is funny.
Okay.
I've just realized that we've been doing this like mildly out of order. Little behind the scenes footage. We ended up recording this. So we recorded an episode about 3 weeks ago that is going to come out after this one that comes before this one, where I talk about this project I've been working on for a long time or thinking about. And now I'm like making going to talk about one specific character. That's kind of funny. All right. So so I'm working on a character for Magician's Academy. You'll hear about that more the following week. But in Magician's Academy, story about mutant kids who, rather than like random genome genetic effect, it's more of like hey, the government sprayed these kids with chemicals kind of intentionally. Um, and the kind of circumstance and sequence of this character is such, high school student goes on field trip with the rest of these kids, ends up getting mutant powers. I think like episode 2 of the series, I'm gonna have them kind of like explore their kind of power situation. In doing so, they make the childish, foolish decision of kind of like sparring, but with superpowers. What possibly could go wrong? Well,
I
turns
don't know.
out that unlike in X-Men and all these TV shows, which, I do love, all of these characters always seem to have super strength and super capability of taking a hit from another super, where I don't think that would be realistic. And one of the things I would like to do with the show is explore a lot of the kind of ifs, ands, and like potentials of like a superhero universe under differing paradigms. And one of which is the interaction between supers fighting supers. In this case, they're kind of sparring, and one of them ends up taking a pretty heavy shot of like either a plasma beam or something like that to a vital organ, and ends up either near death. In this case, what I'm thinking is near death. And, this is roughly 1980s America. They have to go get him help. They don't have the internet. They can't, like, kind of try to Google fix it. So they end up taking this character and dropping him off at a hospital, kind of doing a drive and roll scenario,
Yeah.
letting him know, hey, we think something's up about the fact that we have powers. So don't tell anyone how this happened, and come back and find us at this point in this time. You have like X amount of days, otherwise we're going to move where we're staying. Because these are all the kids that have been affected by this are kids from, let's say, the other side of the tracks, so to speak.
Hmm.
And so they know and have very much dealt with, local law enforcement, the government not helping them out, living in shitty situations, kind of having that sixth sense of somebody's watching you, this isn't okay, you should run, whether it be from, police, a gang, whatever. And so they're
Yeah.
very much on edge and like kind of scared, but understandably so. So they give
Yeah.
their, co-student, now co-mutant, just like a playbook. It ends up getting released a little late and ends up being tailed by a couple of officers, or like under like secret agents that he realizes are tailing him, and he ends up going to the place but getting there after when he was supposed to be, in
Yeah.
which case the group fears for their safety, so they move their kind of uh
Their hideout.
their hideout, which leads him to feel abandoned, and
Yeah.
ends up when the agents come and find him that they weren't looking to hurt him, or not as far as they tell him, but rather they're looking to help these guys. And he ends up being made into like a, not a double agent, but he ends up working with the organization that gave him these powers and trying to help round up the other ones. And
Hmm.
initially, this is because I think I'm trying to find a collective reason on this one, and interested in any insight you have, Broski, is that
Hmm.
I'm not sure how much to play it like he feels like he's been abandoned versus how much he feels like he's finally being appreciated, and what is like a better driving factor for the character, or if there's a
Uh,
coalition of both that can
I
potentially
think
be at
I think
play.
you're in a good way to do both. Because
Okay.
I mean, especially since he's like, 15.
Yeah, he's going to be somewhere in high school. I think probably
Okay.
older, just because I want to touch on more like adult themes as
Sure.
the character, like,
So,
show's
so
a bit gritty, so I want it to be
even if
definitely
you're
18.
17, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you take just if you get like your lung blasted, and you're in a hospital, delirious, drugged up, and you know, you got dumped like a piece of luggage. Even if, even with the sensible reasoning of like, we can't be tracked, we can't have it tied back to us, you still want to feel important enough for people to take the risk. So I think there's very good merit with just like, you guys left me. You didn't leave me any way to catch up because it took me too long to heal. This is unfair. This is garbage. I thought you guys had my back. You put me in the hospital, and then you left me there to die. So I can very much see that maligned reasoning driving him into, someone who, at least initially, seems to, give a damn, to actually appreciate enough to keep an eye on him, if nothing else. So maybe there's some standoff between him and the agency, but if they're willing to do something for him, I can see very easily having kind of an empty slot for allegiance, and being jaded with the group, pushing him right towards, something contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially even if it's just an accident, but just I think that no longer feels like an accident after they leave him.
Even though he understands why they left him, like it's going to be a not uncommon kind of code of if somebody got hurt in not like a turf war, but these are people that don't have insurance, they very much understand being.
And I think it's totally fair that it's not that it's like an unspoken rule or it doesn't make sense.
It's still just one of those inherent vibes.
You want to feel important. People like to feel like they matter. And so it's even though, it's one of those things where it's there's so many situations in life where if you can take 2 steps backwards, it makes sense. It's really not that big a deal. Something suck, but you make sense of why they suck, and, it doesn't feel so bad. But it's really hard to do when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So it's even though, if he could take 3 steps back and go, it was an accident, this is really unfortunate timing, but this is where we are. But, when he stumbles into the warehouse or whatever they're using as a temporary hideout and just finds it abandoned, just looking around, hoping for any kind of message for where they might be going and finding nothing, just going, I'm alone. And suddenly being cut off, that's a lot of hurt and a lot of upheaval. So that just turns you into a raw nerve.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah.
So, what about you? What are you working on this week?
So I have been piecing together, I almost said proprietary material, that's not quite right, a skeleton for my next Clockwork King novel. And one of the characters I'm having some fun fleshing out and figuring out is a character I'm calling Monster. He's one of the only characters I'm not giving an alternate name to. He's just Monster. Because he's forgotten what his old name was.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care, because that kid is long dead and gone at this point. Mm. He is what's called a Graced. And Graced are viewed as these demigods, and they're kind of a cut above. And they're just kind of awesome to witness. They do things that are visually spectacular, and they're just phenomenal creatures to watch in action. And he is what happens when there's an ugly one. Because his whole gift is crazy regeneration and the ability to reconstitute his body. So, he can mess with his arms and, fan them out and thin the muscle and spread out the bones to make wings. Things like that. So, but it's hideous. It's a disgusting process to watch because suddenly you're just looking at exposed muscle and bone tissue. It's not a good look. It's just gross.
It's not what they're looking for in the magazines these days.
It's not. It's not something awe-inspiring. It's something revolting and monstrous. And so when he turns and when he is blessed, which is the process, his parents disown him, and his dad even tries to get rid of him. The problem is he just regenerates too much. So he wakes up to his dad taking an axe to him and trying to cut off his head.
Just normal, fun kid stuff.
Well, his parents view him as a demon. They think he's literally just a devil come walking. And so they try to do what they think is the dignified thing. And so he's just a monster now, and sees that, and his whole sense of reality is warped by it, because he views it that, he so much sees survival of the fittest as being, and it kind of turns him into a bit of an anarchist, because he doesn't believe in establishment and things being ruled, because he doesn't see there's never any such thing as fair. He's broken to that notion. Fairness is
how could you believe in like fairness and equality when like that was your experience?
Yeah, and so that is a completely foreign concept, and so he believes that establishments are lying, that there's just no way. There's no such thing as altruism. There's no such thing as equality. It's all about what you can do and what you can take. And so he's happy to work with the main characters because they want to take down effectively the biggest establishment in the game of the Empire. But he is the embodiment of what the exact opposite is, and it's not better.
Yeah.
It's arguably worse because he is unhinged.
Can see how that would that upbringing experiences would lead to that end product.
Yeah. But what do you have for recommendations this week, guys? Like, what do you got in the?
Well, since we be talking about mums, really like the movie Lady Bird. So the technically second but first solo directed project by Greta Gerwig, who I believe is now a mother. And yeah, I think so. Hold on. Let me take a brief foray real quick.
Survey says
Greta Gerwig, mom, has a child? Question mark.
Dad?
Yes. Yes, they have a kid that's 3. Yes, cool. I'm not wrong. All right. More importantly, the movie Lady Bird is about a young quasi-alt girl growing up in early 2000s, late 90s in Sacramento. So the circumstance is something I very much understand. Lived in Sacramento for a time, lived in Northern California, Northern Nevada for a large percentage of my life. And so the circumstance feels very real to me. It's very kind of fun. So if anybody that has lived in those areas, relative time frame, I think it's kind of like a fun flashback a little bit. And also one of the biggest relationships that you get to kind of go into in the movie is between the main character of Lady Bird and her mother, who love each other, but, generally speaking from, kind of a life heuristic, usually there is a daughter-dad relationship and a mother-son relationship. That's usually where the kind of the cross lines usually end up focusing, because they are enough of the opposite that there's no kind of strive for competition.
Sure.
Is my very medium understanding. And this one, they really kind of lean into that kind of love but strife interaction between those two characters. And I think it's shown in a way where both characters are right while simultaneously, needing to appreciate the other person. They are having that very realistic interaction of I love you, but gosh, you annoy the crap out of me.
You are driving me up a wall.
Yeah, and I think it's a great showcasing and a fairly realistic run out of events while still being mildly uplifting. It's a fantastic little fun art house film. Would recommend. What about you? What you reckon this week?
So I've got 2 things because I watched them back to back.
2 things.
I feel I need to talk to them back to back. You did 2 things.
I know.
2 ago. So, I did not keep with the theme, unfortunately. But speaking of, my first one is a bit of an art house movie. It's called Come True, and there's gonna be massive spoilers, but I don't think anyone should go see this film. So I don't care about spoiling it because it's terrible. And it felt genuinely insulting to watch, and I'll explain why. It had an awesome premise, and that pissed me off. So the premise And it starts with this girl who is sleeping in a park. And so, very clear, she's having issues at home, so she doesn't want to go home, so she can't sleep well. So she ends up enrolling in the sleep study, where the sleep study, what they're doing is they're literally like recording dreams, because it turns out that every person has like the same sleep paralysis demon. It's universal. It's such a cool concept. It's such an awesome like lead-in and discovery, like, half an hour in or whatever. I forget how long it takes for that to be really shown. And there's this really cool imagery with it, and they just... This movie, more than any other movie I've seen, just violates the principle of Chekhov's gun. Over and over and over again. So, for example, they show the main character dodging her mom. Like, avoiding contact. You never get to know why. Strike one. It's not a big strike. It doesn't really matter. But it's just like, why? One of the dudes who's running the sleep study, like, ends up stalking the girl for some reason.
As you do.
Doesn't really explain his infatuation with her. Doesn't even say, like, I thought you're really pretty. There's none of this. He just sort of follows her, which is super weird.
Creepy.
And here's the worst one. There's this scene where you're watching so there's people watching the sleep study, and they're watching through the apparatus, the dreams, and these two people who are sleeping in the same room, their dreams have synced up. And so they're looking at the wall in front of them, and they're watching said sleep paralysis demons, this like black shade thing, walk forward at them. And the two guys sit up abruptly, and like all the lights go out. They never come back to that. Never. It is never resolved. It's never explained. And the rest of the movie is with the girl and the weird stalker, who for some reason they go bone, and then mid session she starts seeing the sleep paralysis demon in the corner of the room, and it walks at her, and then it comes to reality, and the dude's trying to like slap her awake, and the next thing is him running her to a hospital. And the whole movie ends with him seeing her in the hospital, and she just like bites his throat out because she has suddenly vampire teeth. And then her phone goes off, and she looks at her phone, and it's this message. It's like, you've been in a coma for 20 years. We're trying to wake you up. We're hoping this therapy works. That's the end. I've never felt so insulted by a film. And it had the audacity to have a cool premise that it does all with. I'm trying not to swear, so we're not getting an F-bomb there. But good lord, do I want to drop one. And somehow, this schlock movie got an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't even understand what the critic fodder was. It's not good. Its pacing kinda sucks. Its pacing is mediocre. Its dialogue is okay. Its end is just the worst. It's so cheap. They leave so many things unresolved for no good reason. Fire the writers. So because I don't want to end on that note, I actually have a very good movie that I watched the following night called Perfect Blue. This movie slaps. And it's an anime movie from 1997. It's made by Satoshi Kon, I think, is the director. Satoshi Kon,
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
So the guy that did Paprika.
Paprika and Paranoia Agent and something else I'm forgetting. And he makes really, really good, thought-provoking stuff. And this one is mostly about the kind of idea of ownership and fandom. And so the main story is about a woman who's in a J-pop group that goes to try and be an actor. Mm-hmm. And first off, it talks about like the crazy stress she's under as a public figure, and how that is just crippling. But it also goes into whether or not fan perception gets to dictate what she does. So, because she ends up doing this very adult scene for the show, and it causes a lot of kind of chaos with her old image as a J-pop star, and now this. And they're so different, and it's jarring that a lot of her old fan base turns on her, and you're just getting nasty, threatening messages, and stuff starts getting weird really fast. I don't want to say more, because I really don't want to spoil it, because it's really good. It starts a little slow. I was a little worried watching it. It picks up. It's great. And it does the right amount of not telling you, but giving you the clues to piece it together at the end. It does that super well. Highly recommended. It's a great thriller.
I have to check that. That one's been on my watch list for a while, so I'm really glad to hear that it's coming through good. Yeah, speaking of coming through good, we've got both of us actually have some songs to reference. Mine is I couldn't really choose one. There's like 3. I'll list the 3, but Miley Cyrus put out, I know I said that name, you can't believe it either. Miley Cyrus put out an album in 2020, I think, called Plastic Hearts. WTF Do I Know, because I'm not swearing anymore because I'm trying to get a B on this test. WTF Do I Know, Give Me What I Want, and Night Crawling are all just absolute bangers. The rest of the album is also quite good. Those 3 are my standouts, but I would really recommend checking out Plastic Hearts by Miley Cyrus. Feels like kind of like the best of the 80s, like grunge meets hair metal. I don't know. It's super fun. Just kind of, it's not light, but it's not dark. It's kind of like cookies and cream ice cream of, 80s rock, sort of.
Why would you say that? I want ice cream.
So go have some ice cream. You are an adult. It is the 4th of July. Live your best life. But before you do that, maybe you should share what tune is on your mind.
So I ended up hearing, the reason I'm repping this is because I heard an a cappella version and I got interested and found the original song. And the song is Dirty Imbecile by the Happy Fits.
Just the name is funny.
The name is great. It's this kind of folksy tune. It's very kind of underspoken.
Yeah, it's very whimsical.
Very, very simple. But no, it's very fun. I've had far too much fun at work lip syncing to it like an absolutely crazy person, which does get you looked at sometimes since I'm sitting in a beige cubicle. But yeah, it's very good, very simple. But it's really well done, and yeah, give it a listen, enjoy.
Well, speaking of enjoy, thank you for enjoying this episode. And now that we are at the end. Also, thank you for tuning in. And I am boggling this all kinds of crazy.
For being a transition god, or segue god, you are just tripped at this finish line.
Shut up.
No. You've earned this.
Well, that's our episode. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to
like,
comment,
share,
subscribe.
Don't forget, new episode of Super Pros come out the 1st and 3rd Saturday of every month.
Bye. Bye.